He wears a lot of hats. He's a CEO of a startup incubator slash venture capital firm and private equity firm called Pycap. He's also an adjunct professor at the business school, Schulich Business School at York University, and he does a lot of mentorship, and he's also a serial Canadian entrepreneur. So Stuart, welcome to the show.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a great honor to have you. And today, dear listeners, the audience is, from international audience from different parts of the world. You have a great opportunity to ask questions to Stuart from different dimensions, from CEO dimension, from a startup business incubator dimension, from startup visa dimension, and all the perspectives. So I have a list of questions, but you are welcome to send your questions as comment after we do some introduction, and Stuart has a small presentation to share with us today. So Stuart, let's kick off with this. Tell us about yourself briefly. And I'm being here as someone who doesn't know you, although I've read a lot about you, but tell us about yourself and we'll kickstart with that. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, you did a little bit of an introduction, so I'll just elaborate. Yeah. So yes, my company Pycap, I'm the CEO and founder of that company. We are a venture capital firm and an incubator. On the venture capital side, we have about $18 million in assets under management. We currently have 12 portfolio companies. One of those portfolio companies is called ChargerQuest, and I'm also acting as the chief financial officer, and I'm one of the co-founders as well. That company is about 3 years old. We've raised over $4 million in financing. We have over 130 connected electric vehicle assets deployed and operated by us throughout 7 provinces in Canada. So we're quickly becoming the fastest growing charge point operator in the country. In addition to that, I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Toronto. I teach a course called Venture Capital and Private Equity. I'm also an adjunct professor at the Schulich School of Business, where I teach Master of Finance and MBA students.
That's great introduction. I couldn't do it better because today's topic is about startup visa overall. However, we have the privilege to ask you questions from different perspective and dimension. So please bear with us. Our audience is very curious to ask their question. They can start typing right now. So I'll give you the floor, Stuart, to give us a brief introduction in terms of what do you do at Pycap?
Our company has been around for over 10 years. As you've heard in the introduction, we have a venture capital fund. Our company has $18 million, over $18 million in assets under management. We have investment committee positions on large other high growth funds, including OCI, or the Ontario government-backed fund I mentioned, as well as Pycap. And in terms of successful entrepreneurs and track record outside of Startup Visa, we have ChargerQuest and all these companies in our portfolio, and our team of advisors who have had, huge successes with exits in the hundreds of millions coming in and helping, being on our advisory team as well. And then, of course, we have the connection to the universities like the University of Toronto and the Schulich School of Business. We actually teach over 200 students a year, or have been up until this point. And managing that needs to involve a high amount of structure and oversight. And we actually bring that into our incubation program, as I'll show you. Mm-hmm. So our program itself, first and foremost, we have a large team of analysts who go through all of the documentation. And we've been doing this for a while, and we do it very diligently and efficiently. And we're able to provide a letter of support within 1 week of the initial submission of an applicant. Of course, that's pending certain conditions, such as the speed at which the applicant provides us with the due diligence material and other information, their availability for an interview, et cetera, et cetera. But our target is to get a letter of support to our applicants, cradle to grave, from your first initial intake form on our website right to the point where we give you the letter of support. But as mentioned, there's some conditions that apply there. The platform we use within our incubation program is the same one that I use to manage my students at U of T and Schulich, and all of the instructors use it. And so this allows us to, regardless of how many entrepreneurs are in the platform, we have regular communication with all of them through announcements, discussion boards, et cetera, et cetera. And the way that our program is structured is totally unique. There's no other incubator in Canada that has the same structure that we use. Our focus, full stop, 100%, is to make sure that every entrepreneur has the best chances to get their permanent residency. That's what we want. We're not like possibly some other designated organizations who are like, all right, we're doing our job. You have the letter of support. You paid us the fee. You're on your own. If you get rejected, that's on you. That's not how we operate. We kind of act as a community, as a family. We get very involved with the entrepreneurs, even if we have a large number of them. And we manage them like we would companies in our portfolio for our venture capital fund. So when the entrepreneur joins the platform, they will be put into this program that will first essentially say, how much is my company worth today? So we teach those methodologies. And then from insights gleaned from those methodologies, we're able to list out all of the elements of your business that is creating a lack of value or a value gap or an opportunity more value with the entrepreneurs to map those elements to grow your business onto a timeline, and we identify with each value growth plateau that you reach, the resources required to grow your business. Because again, we're serious about you being actively involved. We want to give you our expertise in terms of growing companies, managing a portfolio, et cetera, to ensure that you too are adding value to your business and you're growing it. And by the way, we're an incubator, so we're able to adapt this program to any company at any stage of development. If you're at the MVP stage or you're generating millions of dollars worth of revenue, it all depends on where your company is at and what the valuation is telling us in terms of where your company is what it's worth today and why it's not worth more. So we build out this trajectory, this roadmap, this blueprint for the next 2 to 3 years. Why do we do that? Well, as an early stage company, rule of thumb as a venture capitalist, you want to target a growth of about 10x within the next 2 to 3 years. So try to grow your business as best you can, 10 times its current value that it's at now, regardless of whatever stage that it's at. And we'll help you map that out and help you get there as well. But also, it just so happens that the wait time from when you submit your application to receiving your PR, from what I've heard, is also around 2 to 3 years. So remember I mentioned that IRCC is going to be looking at you and your organization and potentially auditing your company and your team and saying, have you been actively involved in your business while you're waiting for your PR? Well, you're going to have this roadmap to show the visa officer, this is how much my company was worth when I started the program. This is how far we've come within our roadmap, within our blueprint. This is how much further we have left to go. And this is our valuation that we performed today. And I could show you that we increased shareholder value 3 times since we started the program. So regardless of what your background is, your business or financial acumen, you are going to have these skills to do this with yourself, your entrepreneurial team, and your company when you are with Pycap. We have also 23 modules on our platform. So these are seminars you can view from leading experts in corporate and intellectual property law, software development, corporate finance, capital raising, entrepreneurship, et cetera, even artificial intelligence for your business. You know, the list goes on and on. So 23 in-depth modules, seminars, and then within each seminar, there's a stack of resources and material, templates, etc., that you can access as well. And then, of course, we don't just stop at the end of the 6-month program, like possibly some other incubators, because we want to make sure that you are successful with your permanent residency. That is the most important thing to us. So when you finish this roadmap, when you've done the valuation, you've done the revaluation, you know exactly how you're going to be growing your business over the next 2 to 3 years and all of these different stages and steps and milestones you need to surpass. That's not the end of our engagement with you. We're going to keep you involved in our community, on our platform, and we're going to be building and adding you to our alumni network so you could get to know the entrepreneurs and, of course, be in communication with us right up until the point where you get your permanent residency. Okay, so I'm not going to turn this into an MBA lecture. We'll save that for when you enter into our program, if that happens. But here's just some examples of how a company can map out their growth, like adding distribution channel partners in Canada, implementing a marketing campaign or sales rollout, accessing external sources of financing to develop products more, hire employees, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so I think what we'll do, I have some startup visa requirements here that you can go through. Perhaps we could discuss this later through the Q&A if that's important. I don't want to take up too much time for this event with my presentation, but I'm happy to jump into questions right now if there are.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Stuart. You've answered almost like 70% of my questions here. But I will start with the very common questions that I'm being asked as a business immigration lawyer. How important is language and language tests, or knowing the English language or French language for that matter, for the startup visa applicant in your experience?
In my experience, there's as long as the applicant meets the eligibility requirements for the language tests for IRCC, that is sufficient for us.
We've seen, and you pointed out, Stuart, correctly, there are so many rejections and federal court cases these days related to startup visa program, and where applicants allegedly pursued immigration status rather than running the business. And now we see regular reports being required by IRCC, like 3 months, 6 months reports showing that you are doing something on your startup visa even before arriving to Canada. So at our law firm, we always say, you concentrate on your business, immigration will come later. And if you work hard on the business, immigration is one of many outcomes at the end of the tunnel. What can you say in that respect? For example, there are certain applicants where they say, oh, startup visa takes 30 months and I'm now in my home country. I just have to sit and wait for my PR to come, and then I will push the shovel to the ground when I'm in Canada.
Yeah, that's if someone has that perspective, then they've definitely been misinformed. Rahmad, I can't agree with you more. It's important to focus on your business. And quite frankly, again, what I've seen from the IRCC, it's not good enough to just say, I'm in my home country and I have to be in Canada to start my business. There's so many things that you can do remotely to get your business off the ground, even if it's a bricks and mortar retail store on Queen Street in Toronto. You could do research, you could establish partnerships, you could source products and make a plan on how you're going to develop your business further. And again, that's why I keep emphasizing, I guess, to choose a designated organization correctly, because if they have a virtual incubation program and a structured platform that builds on itself over that period of time, then that's a huge amount of reassurance for the entrepreneur that they're receiving the guidance necessary to make sure that they are actively engaged in their business as IRCC wants to see it.
Absolutely, that's a very good comment, and we see more and more evidences to that active engagement in the business from the federal court, who's supporting the decision to reject the person who was just sitting for the last 2 years doing nothing on the startup. And coming from the startup environment, how important it is to move fast with your project, because you cannot wait for 2 years or 24 months to put the shovel into the ground, right? It's a fast-paced environment. As you said, 10x is expected from growth within 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. So when I said the 10x expected growth, I wouldn't say that IRCC is looking for 10x. I just say, like, as a rule of thumb, if you're in the kind of universe of venture capital, that's what you should be targeting for. If you get 2x or 3x, that's still a successful outcome, depending on the type of business you're in. When we think of the term speed, I would say more focus on like a pragmatic approach to growing your company in a way that makes sense to your business model and the industry that you're operating in. So that's okay. So coming from the perspective as an entrepreneur, every company is totally different. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to rush a product to market because it might not be ready. You're worried about your reputation if there's bugs or other issues that haven't been worked out. In some cases, it does make sense to bring a product to market as fast as possible. What you need to do is do a thorough analysis on your company, the opportunity that you're pursuing, and do what makes the most sense for your business. Because I could tell you, if you get sent to peer review and you're asked these difficult questions, if you're an entrepreneur who's been actively involved in your business, you understand your industry, you're getting the right guidance, you'll be able to address those questions in a way that makes sense for your company, not for some standard that someone else is kind of thinks of. Because you can't be an expert in everything. They're really looking for the entrepreneur to be an expert in their own field.
When I come to Canada with my startup on a work permit, I start working on it. But I realized that what I'm trying to do, either it's not feasible or it's too difficult. How do I pivot? And does your incubation program and your mentorship help them to pivot to the right direction? Because their expectations were this way, but apparently it's this way. So how, if you can also address this from the Startup Visa program, is government okay when you pivot from your original plan to the next plan?
Yes, a pivot is okay. And we help facilitate that because as entrepreneurs ourselves, we know that a company making a pivot, adapting to the changing demands of the market and your changing business plan is just a way of life of being an entrepreneur. So that happens. And of course, IRCC, they're looking for entrepreneurs with the potential for success. And they don't necessarily expect your company to be successful in its current iteration right out of the gate. So they want to see that you are making every effort possible. If the line of business you're on is not working out, you're going to adapt to one that does work out. And of course, as entrepreneurs, we'll help you get there when you're in our program.
What is the scope of the medical equipment business in Canada? And I will paraphrase that. Do you deal with medical sector or medical startups at Pycap? So if you can combine these two questions.
To answer your question, our incubator is industry agnostic. Our litmus test, or the one thing that we look for, is to make sure that the applicants coming in are going to have a good chance of passing IRCC and getting their permanent residency. And so once the entrepreneurs are in our program, of course, with our extremely broad network, we're able to facilitate guidance in whatever category the entrepreneur is in, including medical equipment, where we do have a lot of experience in that.
And how about the med tech sector? What's your view in Canada, maybe North America, and pandemic taught us that we need a lot of med tech to address sudden widespread disease and pandemics in the future.
Healthcare is one of the biggest industries in Canada. Likewise with financial services, and you're choosing a great country to come to if you want to build your medical equipment. Canada, as I'm sure you know, has some of the highest standards in the world in terms of Health Canada approval of medical devices and drug creation, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, you're definitely coming to the right place in that regards.
Could you help with viable business ideas after evaluating the credentials of the applicant or the applicants in terms of education, business experience, financial resources, attitude, and liking? Does Pycap help to come up with a viable business idea for the startup visa program? Is that a possibility?
This is so if you go to a designated organization who's trying to sell you consulting services to help you come up with a viable business idea or give you a viable business idea, and I put that in massive air quotes, that's a red flag. You should not be working with a designated organization who's giving you a business idea, because they're essentially entering into a massive conflict of interest, because they're going to be evaluating their own work as opposed to having that unbiased perspective.
What are the criteria do you use to evaluate a potential startup visa applicant for your incubation program?
So we look at you as the individual, as the team. We say to ourselves, okay, with this business that they're looking to run in Canada, does it look like the management team can execute on this based on their track record, their experience within this industry? We look at the innovation within your business idea or your startup, and we say to ourselves, is this innovation that would qualify for IRCC? And it doesn't always have to be software or AI or all those kind of things that we tend to think of nowadays in terms of innovation. There's a lot of other criteria that are out there, like machine related, process related, operations related. It just takes having some conversations with someone who knows what they're doing to kind of identify that maybe you have a company right now that has elements in it that is innovative and would qualify with IRCC, and you don't need to hire someone to create a fake business for you, and you don't need to hire a software developer to create innovation for you. You might already have it and possibly not even be aware.
As a side note and maybe side question, Stuart, does Pycap or your team help those entrepreneurs, foreign entrepreneurs, who are not interested in startup visa program or immigration status, but they want to enter Canadian market / North American market? Can they still contact you outside of startup visa program?
Absolutely. Like if you go on our website, pycap.com, you'll see that we have a whole division that provides consulting services, everything related to business strategy, accessing markets, and then of course, accessing external capital. So if you're looking for investors or connect with distribution channel partners here, or whatever the case may be, we could facilitate that in Canada as well as through the US.
Tanvir says, can we have an IT consulting company as a startup?
Usually, IRCC does not want to have consulting companies, because consulting companies, there's no, they would see it this way. You don't own innovation within the company. All of the value within that business is individuals and what they're able to facilitate for their clients. But the company doesn't itself own its own innovation. So you'll have to think through that process if you're considering a startup visa program.
Excellent. Next question is from Ejaz Kausar. I'm working in a bank as an IT consultant. How can you help me to start the startup business, because it's a two different stream? I never have experience in business. So he has been an employee, not an entrepreneur. Maybe I'm paraphrasing that. But are they still maybe good fit for a startup visa program if you have never run a business, never had an experience as an entrepreneur?
100% you could be eligible. Like part of you joining a good incubation program is filling in your team, filling in the blanks, and training you to the point where you become a good business person, especially in Canada with the Canadian culture here and what have you. In order for you to start this process, you have to have your own business idea and like a pitch deck. You have to think through those things. If you want me to send you some resources, feel free to reach out to us. But in order for you to start the program, you do it at a bare minimum have to have a business idea. But with your background in banking and IT, I think there's some really great potential there.
Do all incubators offer a letter of support for receiving a lot of money? Or do some of them have government support programs and issue the letter of support after receiving a small amount of money?
You know what? It varies. I think for the most part, I mean, it's all relative. What is a lot of money? I've heard of designated organizations selling a letter of support. Of course, ones that might be classified as not reputable for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Others of them, it's in the tens of thousands of dollars. But for the most part, if you want to apply to an incubator, there is going to be a fee associated that before you receive your letter of support.
Electrification of vehicles. Where do you see this is going? Is Pycap interested in more startups in this area? And what's your thought about electrification in Ontario, in Canada, and go beyond Canada, North America?
Those of us in this industry, we feel like the electrification of the automotive sector is a massive tsunami that is coming. It's going to completely revolutionize so many things in terms of how we travel, and there's essentially no stopping it. And that's part of the factor why we've been successful with Charger Quest is that people want to get involved. They want to ride this rising tide.
Can startups accept investors in their groups, meaning group of 5 founders? What is the criteria? How involved the investor should be? What is IRCC's stance on this? So maybe coming back to what already discussed, but more refining.
In my opinion, it is perfectly okay to bring on investors. In fact, I like seeing that because oftentimes the investors can add a huge amount of value. Obviously, they're adding capital, which is very important for a startup to use to succeed as well. But you got to look at the factor of active involvement. Like IRCC is a bit of a black box. Like anybody who claims to know exactly what their motivations are, what their thinking process is probably misleading you or trying to make themselves sound like they're connected or something when they actually aren't. So from my personal perspective, I think it's perfectly fine. I think that they have to be able to demonstrate tangible value that they're bringing to the company outside of just their capital. That for me, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be working on the company 9 to 5 every single day.
What made you start a business incubator?
As a venture capitalist and someone who just loves working with entrepreneurs and business, it allows us to access some of the best minds from around the world. I can't, like when we have a virtual incubator seminar and we have 40 people in the seminar and somebody's from Nigeria, someone's from Iran, someone's from Dubai, someone's from Brazil, someone's from Botswana, and we're all in this incubation seminar online, tuning in at the same time, asking questions to the advisor and having such amazing discussions among different cultures, different political backgrounds, different stages of development. It's such a privileged experience that I find myself in, and the entrepreneurs really gain from that too. So it gives me that kind of global outreach to bring in entrepreneurs, not just ones that are based in my backyard in Toronto, but all over the world. I could work with people doing amazing things.
Why entrepreneurs listening to us right now and who will be watching this video, why entrepreneurs should consider Canada?
Canada is one of the best countries in the world to start a business because we have a stable government, stable legal system that allows consumers to trust brands because they have the feeling that they're being looked after. There's all the support from the government, grants, tax credits, et cetera, to support innovation. And And there's a really strong ecosystem here of investors, pipelines into channels to sell your products and get involved with different organizations to establish partnerships with banks, hospitals, educational platforms, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I mean, I could really go on and on. This is so much more than a blip. Canada's ranked like one of the best countries in the world. I think it was the 2021 Best Countries report for living here.
Last but not the least, what advice do you give for aspiring entrepreneurs who are starting out right now, and what essential qualities they must have with respect to Canadian market? Maybe you can go into more specifics of Canadian market, North American market.
Instead of me saying what skills and abilities you should have, what I'll say is look internally and see what skills and abilities you have, and then try to get advisors, partners, team members to fill in the gaps, because we can't be experts on all things at all the time. So if you have an expertise in technology or finance or marketing, that's great. Those are all essential skills and team members to make a company successful, but just identify where your gaps are and then fill those in accordingly.
Thank you very much for your valuable advice, tips, Stuart. I really, really appreciate it. And listeners, thank you for your active participation. If you have any questions, pycap.com is the website to go and learn more about Stuart's team and how they can help.